Shivering and cold, she walks into the night. Her soulless gaze continues to wander. She takes her time under dim moonlight. Her crimson lust grows fonder. Body aching, the hours grow short. The wind carries a foreign taste. Carrying her legs, the scent exhorts. Lost in time, she's been misplaced. A sickening smile stretching ear to ear. Muscles tense as her senses run wild. The prey, no rabbit, nor fox, nor deer, but that of an innocent child. Saliva building in her watering maw. For such a treat she will indulge. She'll grip the chin and break the jaw. Nightmares unfathomed will soon divulge. Moving silently in the dead of night, soon to savor unholy pleasure. Illuminated by lamp night, to malevolence she does surrender. A child so pure she embraces so tightly, fingers soon will strip the flesh, her power returning ever so slightly, as teeth rip into her unknowing guest. No scream of pain, just twitching of limbs, precious liquid filling her throat. A scene so delicately evil and grim, from her lips I dare quote. I am pure evil incarnate at last. This world will fear my presence, for eating children fills my past. Nothing will stop this misfeasance. Preach to your gods and pray for your dead. Your words bring me pure bliss, for I am hell, the living end, ruler of the abyss. Skin and bone don't fold like paper. No, you won't understand if I start there. Did you know you can fold the universe? Was the first thing I asked them, right there on the merry-go-round. A single egg, unfolded into 3, same size, same shape, same color. Pale skin, golden hair, beautiful like blank paper. If you fold it 1,000 times, it will grant you your wildest wishes. I think they thought I was joking because one of them laughed. The other 2 shushed her with similar mouths. I looked around for their mother. See this? The paper crane was already in my palm. It has 16 folds. There's 1 for each of you. They reached out their small hands. There was no choosing. They were all the same. Their mother was tending to her little dog. She always took at least 50 seconds to dry him off after his romp in the fountain, but never more than 2 minutes. Come see, over here. The frog has 17 folds, the lion 37. I bet you can't count the number the raccoon has. Would you like to try? Did you know if you folded the universe, you'd be able to reach all points at once? Time travel isn't a machine. It's a folded piece of paper. The park was poorly designed, not enough entrances. Too many spots for a child to get lost. Draw it out on a piece of paper, you'll see. The man who designed it was no master. When we passed along a path which led to the road, I heard their mother screaming behind me. Yet, we were already out of sight. Once they were in my van, I made sure they were quiet. I took them down to the basement, one at a time. Abigail held the frog. Anne held the lion. Alexandra held the raccoon. She didn't want to count the folds. I'd practiced on many animals, read medical books, scoured the internet. Still, I wasn't prepared. My mother taught me how to make a paper chain of people. Fold a piece of paper across its width 5 or 6 times. Then draw half a person at the folded edge. When you cut the form, bilateral symmetry creates the other half. It wasn't origami, it's true, but it was my first experience creating a form out of pure formlessness. None of them were conscious when I removed their hands from their arms. Abigail was first. I sewed Abigail to Anne, Anne to Alexandra, Alexandra to Abigail, their backs creating the inside of a solid circle. I had to dislocate their shoulders to make it work. There was something purposeful, magic about the proportions of the human body. Vertuvius knew. If I could have folded the universe, I would have gone forward to when they were healed, so I could see my masterpiece. A human paper chain. It's not origami, but every master has to start somewhere. Skin and bone don't fold like paper. You have your father's eyes. That's what everyone would tell me. I look exactly like my mom, but I have my father's eyes. It became one of those things where I heard it so often it started to lose meaning, but I couldn't lose the eyes. I saw the fear in my mom's face when I hit her full blast with my gaze. I saw the pain, the trauma she endured at his hand. My father was not a nice man. He was an abusive alcoholic. He would hurt my siblings and my mother, and me. As I grew, I understood that this was not the way a father was supposed to treat his wife, his children. Being the oldest of 4, I knew it was my responsibility. I had to do something. So I took his eyes. He was passed out drunk when I came after them, wielding a small pocket knife he had given me. I tried to pry them free, but only managed to scrape off part of one when he woke in a pain-fueled rage. Terrified, I started stabbing at him. He grabbed at me, pinching my arms with his grip, and tried to force me off of him. Screaming and crying, I kept stabbing and slicing, only stopping when his grip finally loosened and his body fell slack. Then, I was able to finish my task. The police called it self-defense. They saw the bruises on me and my family, spoke to everyone, and found out what we had been through. They didn't even question the 2 gaping holes left where his eyes should have been. Now I keep his eyes in a small box in the back of my closet, and when people say I have his eyes, I simply smile and say, yes, I do.
The supernatural is a universal language to convey ancient wisdom. Be below as above. I am Dr. Halliday. The journey from adolescence into adulthood does not cease when death occurs. Though the remains of the body no longer grows, the spirit does. Some of the best ghost stories are often told by the spirits themselves, especially when the spirit in the body plays hide and seek.
When I was a child, I always loved playing. Hide and seek. Except this one time, they called off the search before anyone. Found my body.
All humans have dormant portals to the spirit world encoded into their subconscious mind. The key to unlock this gateway is a resonance to tales of horror that manifest paranormal activity into your reality. So once you hear it, it happens.
I was up all last night, chatting, on a live stream podcast. Called Once You Hear It, It Happens.
The thing's supposed to stand. Well, those reports conflict as well because, right,
they were telling these creepy stories about the devil grabbing people's arms if they hung off the sides, to pull their soul to hell. Before they wake up. I fell asleep and had a very strange dream. I woke up this morning on the floor with a sore arm and a huge handprint burned around my wrist. When in the maze of mirrors, remember, they can't get out of the mirrors as long as you are watching them. Our haunted house is currently malfunctioning. We apologize. If you're invited in by the smiling man in a top hat, don't enter. When using the restrooms after dark, you must use the buddy system. If you should lose your buddy, we insist you take a new one. Enjoy the Ferris wheel. It's the tallest one in the state. But when your car is at the top of the wheel, only look down or close your eyes. Several months ago, a pair of occupants reportedly looked out over the fence that borders the park and didn't like what they saw. They jumped. Madame Maliakana is a new attraction here. She'll read your palm if you're nice. But if you, well, just make sure you're nice to her. Make sure you visit our zombie shooting gallery, where you can win various prizes. Don't go crazy on the ammo, though. We can't let the inventory get too low, just in case. You'll notice multiple cans grouped together near all trash receptacles. Please be advised, the green can is for plastics, the brown is for general waste, the black is for glass, and the white cans should remain sealed at all times. The leprechaun who can guess your weight is a real hoot. However, if he asks your kids to join him in the photo tent, make sure and decline his invitation. The merry-go-round is an old classic. The children always love it. Just remember, they can't stay on the ride forever, no matter how attached they get. I know you all want the best seats for Mr. Mysterio's magic act, but just a heads up, do not arrive more than 15 minutes before a show starts, unless you're volunteering for cleanup duty. Here at the carnival, we currently have no clowns on staff. With that in mind, we aren't responsible if some turn up in your family photos. Please take advantage of the bottled water for sale throughout the park. Our drinking fountains aren't advisable to use, as there's a small possibility that the water from the neighboring water park has been leaching through our wells. Have a super duper day, and bring your friends next time. My twin and I didn't get to spend as long as we would have liked together. It wouldn't have been possible, given our condition. One of us had to die so that the other could live. It wasn't an easy decision for our parents, but it was a necessary one. Even though we were no longer together, we could still feel each other's presence. It gave me comfort, and I'm sure it gave him comfort too. Things were actually pretty great. I knew that we were both happy despite the circumstances. We could no longer talk to each other, but we could still communicate through feeling and knowing. Those are more powerful than speaking anyway. The weirdest thing is that we could still feel each other's physical pain. It was like an exaggerated case of phantom limb pain, which, knowing our previous condition, would totally make sense. I started to feel helpless, though, once the screaming started. It was endless. At first, there wasn't any pain associated with it, but there was fear. No, not fear. It was terror. Blood draining, heart racing, head spinning, terror. Terror accompanied by spine-tingling screaming. It pierced my ears and made my head split. It continued for what felt like days. I felt so helpless, but what could I do? The pain was sharp when I first felt it. It wasn't isolated either. It was all over my body. It was like nothing else I had ever experienced before. It stabbed at me and burned my skin. I cried in pain as I felt what they felt. I couldn't possibly begin to fathom what was causing it. The screaming began to subside. It turned into muffled sobbing and groaning as the throbbing pain we shared consumed my being. I so badly wanted to help. I wanted to do something to alleviate it, to say something comforting. I couldn't. With me in my dark world, and him still in the world I once knew, I couldn't.
The following interview was recorded back in 1996 off of a late-night radio show. The woman they had on claimed to have been abducted by aliens multiple times and was finally ready to tell her story to a larger audience. She tried to share her story before but was always dismissed. They talked about this a bit before the interview actually started, but I'll skip all that so you can hear the more interesting parts. So you're here to tell your story. Where would you like to start?
I suppose the best place to start would be with the first abduction.
I'd like to know here that she seemed extremely nervous, almost like someone was watching her. In her previous tellings of stories, she was much more animated and in your face. Okay, when was that?
Just a few years ago, September 1st, 1993. I was outside watering my garden when I felt a small prick on the back of my neck and dropped to the ground.
I'm assuming this happened during the day?
Correct.
And you couldn't move? Why not call for help?
I tried. Believe me, I did. It was if that prick I felt sent me into shock. I was lying on the ground, staring up at the sky, and that's when I saw them.
Them?
The Greys.
The interviewer gives a little chuckle at the statement. Right, and did they say anything to you?
They just picked me up, and then I blacked out. When I woke up, I was on board their ship.
Mm-hmm. Is this the point where you talk about the unexplained scars you received? The woman had a bit of aggravation in her voice.
They have an explanation. This long one on my arm is nearly faded away. It happened so long ago.
And what caused it?
The Greys drew blood from my arm. They told me it was needed for medicine on their ship. I have one of the rarest blood types, being AB negative.
So they spoke to you?
Only through telepathy. They never opened their mouths.
The interviewer stays silent for a few seconds before continuing. Alrighty then. It's pretty obvious he wasn't buying into the story. I'll skip over the second story because it wasn't very eventful. She claimed that one night while sleeping, she was woken up by Gray speaking to her by her bedside. The Gray asked her a few questions about her family tree and her lineage before returning to the craft and disappearing into the sky. The final encounter was probably the most bananas.
Are you sure you want me to continue? This last one may shock your listeners.
The interviewer seemed fed up at this point. Oh, I'm sure they're already shocked. Please, proceed.
This is the final encounter I had before I was admitted. It was late, about 3 a.m., and I was up watching reruns of some silly show. The television then began to lose signal. It would cut to static, and I could swear that I saw a message in the static.
What did it say?
Give in.
I'm not going to lie. This actually sent a chill down my spine. The way she said it, she was so certain about it. So, what did you do?
I did what I was told. I went upstairs to my bedroom and I lied down on the bed. I got myself in the birthing position as best I could and waited.
And how long did you wait?
I'm not sure. I fell asleep. However, when I woke up, I knew I had been visited.
How so?
I was completely naked and had a small circular scar on my right abdomen.
And this happened
9 months ago, today. I'm due sometime next week.
I'm not 100% sure what to make of this whole thing. From what I found just searching her name up on Google, she was admitted to an establishment for the mentally ill. She was given multiple ultrasounds, but none of them could find a child. Doctors believed she had some type of tumor or possibly a form of cancer. However, when they tried to operate, she would fight and scream, claiming he wasn't ready. Allegedly, they sedated her and were able to operate. However, there are no records of this. Furthermore, all the records of her that I can find have tons of statements from doctors and surgeons, but they've all been redacted. And I can't help but feel someone is trying to hide something. It doesn't really help that the interviewer gave her a platform and then said this a few moments after she left the room. Well, there you have it, folks. Just more evidence that the mind's a feeble thing and one could lose it at any moment. But seriously, I'm glad this woman is getting the help she needs. Next week, we'll have on Cthulhu. That's where the interview cuts off. If you're unaware, Cthulhu is the extraterrestrial visitor from the film The Day the Earth Stood Still, released in 1951. I hope she found the answer she was looking for. Whether or not it was mental health or something out of this world, I'm at no liberty to say. But please just be respectful in the comments.
Hello everyone. Just a quick little announcement before I begin this video. I just want to say that I am in no way trying to be offensive by choosing to read this story. I actually work in the field of mental health, specifically with the autistic population, and that is not my objective here. I actually don't think this story is offensive at all in any way, or I definitely wouldn't have chosen to read it, but you can't be too careful nowadays, so I just wanted to say that. Now, without further ado, let's get creepy. I wish my therapist Anna would have listened. She was pretty and nice. I really liked her a lot. She was so consistent, and even when she scolded me, she was never mean about it. I looked forward to her visits after school. She'd put me to work, mostly practicing important life skills, but sometimes we'd sit at the table and work on academics. I hated working, but I liked her. She praised me a lot. Best of all, she'd listen. She couldn't always understand me. What I said sounded clear to me, but it must have sounded different to her. She'd make me repeat myself. I felt bad for getting frustrated. Sometimes I'd lash out and hit her. I didn't mean to hurt her. It's just hard not being understood. My parents ordered me a communication book. It had lots of pictures, but none were relevant. I couldn't use it to tell Anna what I needed to say. I couldn't tell her the truth. I couldn't tell her that my parents were maniacal murderers. They had flown under the radar for years, murdering random people. They always talked about it near me. They must have thought that because they couldn't understand me, it meant that I couldn't understand them either. Wrong. I could understand them so clearly. I knew everything. They knew it was foolish to try and kill someone who worked in our home, but the thrill of getting away with something like that was so intense. They finally decided that they would take the risk and murder Anna, but it'd have to wait until the spring thaw. I started to ramp up my behaviors. I'd start by having accidents so that she would be excused for the day. I began biting her. I always tried to draw blood. Not enough to hurt her, just enough to get her sent home for the afternoon. I had meltdowns. I would spend large chunks of time thrashing in my chair and being non-compliant. If Anna couldn't get any work out of me, then she'd call it a day. She was persistent. She never quit. She didn't want to give up on me. I wish I could have told her that I wasn't trying to hurt her. I wanted her to know that I was trying to help. Pretty soon, I learned to make myself sick so that I could stay home for days at a time without having services. I needed to protect her. I tried to communicate with her the best way I knew how. I told her to go. I told her to get out, to not come back. She always came back, though. I watched helplessly as it happened. Anna was leaving for the night. Dad walked her out to the car. He knocked her out with a rock from the garden and dragged her by her hair into the shed. I screamed, but the neighbors had learned to ignore my tantrums. He was tall and wiry, full of music and light. He was mine. I was his. Something happened. I don't know what. At first, he was just quiet, responding in monosyllables and grunts. Then, every word became terse and imbued with contempt, until I became silent too. He wouldn't touch me, except in desperation. Then, he began to stink of his vices, and the blows began to fall. His cruel words, his violence. He began to flaunt his other women. He devoured me with the ease and relish that he might eat a carton of ice cream. He scraped away everything that was soft and sweet, leaving only a fragile shell that told the story of what was once inside, a tooth broken by his eager fist, the long telling scars on my wrists. But I loved him! Once, I caught him in our bed with one of his others.
"Get out, bitch!"
He screamed, launching a lamp to shatter against the wall. I sat in the dim, cluttered living room and listened to them giggle and carry on. She was tall and thin. She winked at me when she went out. He followed shortly after.
"Got a cigarette?"
Yes. My fingers brushed the cool metal of the knife that I had carried as I probed the guts of my purse. That's when he changed. They were wrong about him. They said he would never change. I knew that he could, that he would. If I could just hang on long enough, I could heal him with my blood-red love. It was growing inside of him, all along, waiting to boil out of his throat. We were baptized in it together. It was spiritual, like an act of God. He is still silent, but he always keeps me company now, slumped there on the couch. He is happy. He has the widest grin. It shows all of his teeth. And the sex. Oh my God. The sex is incredible.